let's dive into your career with Crash Test Dummies. So the band released demos in 1988 and 1989, and you joined in 1991. How did you meet the other members? How did you know they were looking for a drummer? Did you have to audition? I have so many questions, Mitch.
Brad's original band was Brad Roberts and the St. James Rhythm Pigs, and they were doing something. It was a lark. It was a bunch of university students. They were just having some good fun. And then he wanted to get a little bit more serious about it, so he wrote some songs. They wanted to go out and play a festival, so they had the first Crash Test Dummies demo. They sent it off to Mariposa Festival, which is in Ontario. Richard Flohill, who was the director, I think, at the time, got this tape and said, "Wow, this band is really cool." And so he sent it off to BMG, the A&R people at BMG, which I believe might have been David Bendith at the time, said, "Hey, this is really cool. Let's look into these guys." And through the whole process, la-di-da-di-da, boom, they got a record deal. Now, Vince Lambert, who was the original drummer for Crash Test Dummies at that point in time. There were a few guys in there, but he was the guy that was playing with them at that particular point in time. For whatever reason, he loved the ground I walked on. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. He saw me play somewhere or something. If I walked in and he was playing a gig, he would get nervous. If I went over and talked to him, he just turned into like a total Mitch is talking to me. And I don't know where that came from. But he always spoke very highly of me all the time. And we used to play at a place in Winnipeg called the Blue Note Cafe, which really was, after everyone finished playing their gigs at the local clubs, everybody would congregate over to the Blue Note at 1 o'clock in the morning, and we would all play till 4 or 5 in the morning every night. Pretty much, you could go there on any night, and we'd all be there playing. And so Brad would be there. Dan was there. Vince would be there. Ellen was there. Not all necessarily all playing, but sometimes just hanging out. And over the course of time, we all got to know each other fairly well. And when it became apparent that Vince wasn't really working out in the band in terms of the direction that they were going and what their expectations were, it just was logical at the time that they might want to ask me, because I was held in high regard from Vince, and perhaps maybe they held me in some regard as well. However, I was really busy. I was doing a lot of things. I was playing in 4 or 5 different bands. I had just come back from Europe playing with the Jacques Lussier band. I was having a great time, and I would say that I wasn't interested in it only because I was just really busy. I was doing a lot of things. And they had held auditions, and they'd settled on somebody. And he turned around sort of last minute, like literally last minute, and said, "Another opportunity's come up for me. I'm bailing." And this came right at a time when they were going down to do a BMG convention in the Cayman Islands. So Brad called me up and said, "Hey, look, I need you to do me a favor, Mitch. We're going down to the Cayman Islands. We're doing this BMG convention. Can you come and do it with us? Like, we'll pay you whatever you want, but we want to make sure that this goes off really well, and we think you're the guy to do it." And sorry, man, at the time, I think it was April 8th. Ask me why I remember that. I have no idea. But I think it was April 8th. And I said, "Brad, I can't do it. Like, I'm going to be in Europe with Jacques." And I guess you could call it a universe thing. But I put the phone down in talking to Brad, and the phone was still in my hands, it's an old rotary phone. And it rang. And I picked it up, and it was Jacques telling me that a couple of the festivals that we were going to Europe to do wouldn't sign a contract. And so therefore he didn't want to potentially lose his shirt. And so we're not going. Okay. So I called Brad back. Like, this is all in the span of about 2.5 minutes. And I called Brad back and say, "Hey, wouldn't you know it, as luck would have it, situation's changed. I'd love to go down and do this gig with you." So on the way down there was the first time that I really had an opportunity to hang outside the late night hang with the Blue Note and everything else, and talk about what a record contract meant. And they were, Brad and Dan at the time, who I was talking with mostly at the time, and of course Ellen, were such grounded people. And I thought, wow, like this would be a really great situation to be involved with, because they're not going around going, hey, we got a record deal, we got a record deal. And so on the way back, I discussed with them, and I said, look, like, if you guys are interested, I would be happy to make this like my priority gig. And we never looked back after that. So we got together, we played. And originally I was the drummer. I wasn't part of Crash Test Dummies. I was the hired drummer. And when we got into the making of God Shuffled His Feet is when everything changed. And what I brought to the table was more than just being a drummer. And it grew from there. So we knew each other from playing out and being in the same place at the time. We knew a lot of the same people. And it was just a really good fit, right? From the very first show we played, there was just a really nice feeling on stage. And that for me was worth pursuing.